The void did not feel empty. It felt loud. It pressed on the helmet like a shout. It rattled the bones with a kind of quiet thunder. Captain Rhett Varen floated beside a dead ship and listened to that thunder. His mag boots clicked against a scarred hull plate. A slow spin tugged at him. Far away, a broken moon turned like a bad dream. This place had a name among scavengers. They called it the Shred. It was where a battle had ended and a graveyard had begun. Wrecks drifted through crooked gravity. Loose panels scissored the dark. Cables dragged like jellyfish arms. Old fires still glowed inside torn metal, pale and angry. Anchor set, Bryn Cora said in Rhett's ear. Bryn sounded like gravel dropped in a bucket. He was somewhere off Rhett's right, a heavy shape against the stars. Spin is slowing. You've got a window. Copy. Rhett checked his suit's gauges. Oxygen, steady. Heat, low. Thrusters, touchy. His cutter sputtered in his glove like a sick sparkler. He hit it with the heel of his hand. The flame steadied. Good girl. The hull under him wore a name in a language he did not know. The letters were tall and sharp. The ship had once been proud. Now it had holes like bite marks. Rhett traced a circle with his cutter. The metal went cherry red, then slumped. He kicked the plug free and peered into the dark. His lamp crawled over frozen air like dust. Inside, the ship was a cold throat. Ribs and wires. Torn floors and bulging walls. Tools floated. So did tiny pearls of coolant and long shards of glass. He slipped through and let the suit pull him straight. His breath echoed. His heart ticked like a slow drum. Somewhere in the static, something pinged. Rhett froze and listened. There it was again. A soft, patient tap. Not random. A beacon. Old ships cried like that when they did not want to die alone. Got a distress, he said. Close. Human, Bryn asked. Alien. Pattern's different. Salvage law says. Salvage law doesn't bleed, Rhett said. He pushed off a wall and drifted down a corridor, torn into a zigzag. His lamp painted slices of silver. A body turned in the light. Armor like a smooth shell. Face hidden behind a cracked visor. He moved on. The ping grew stronger. The chamber he found had fallen in on itself. Racks of glittering towers lay crumpled like cards, each as big as a truck. Cables coiled across the air. In the middle, under a tilted pillar of alloy, a figure moved. She wore a suit made of soft blue light and pale plates. Braxton, he guessed. Slender. Built for speed, not for lifting. One leg was trapped under the fallen rack. Frost edged her visor from the inside. Her suit lights died one by one, like a city going dark. Rhett landed beside her. The mag boots clunked. Her helmet turned toward him. Two wide eyes met his through fog and glass. My leg, she whispered, and the word came broken through translation. Release needs power. Power is gone. Her suit spoke too, a flat voice, too calm. Warning, life support failure in 9 minutes, 42 seconds. Rhett measured the mass in a glance. The rack was too heavy to shove. In 0G, weight did not matter. Inertia did. Push wrong, and the whole thing would swing and paste her. Cut the rack, and heat might cook the limb. He checked his distance to the breach. He checked the path back. He checked the shaking in his own hands, and found there was none. We don't have time to charm the machine, he said. I'm ending the trap. Don't, she said. The joint, the seal. Trust me. He set the cutter to a fine line and aimed just below her knee, where armor met armor. The suit voice rose, smooth and certain. Probability of catastrophic failure, 97 point. Mute, Rhett said, and pulled the trigger. White fire kissed the plate. Metal wept and parted. The smell of hot alloy flooded his filters. The Vraxen cried out. The rack shuddered, but stayed. The cut finished in a flash of steam. The lights on her suit fell to a single angry red. Life support compromised, the calm voice said. Estimated function, 8 minutes, 59 seconds. Rhett holstered the cutter and pulled a mess of straps from his belt. He called it the backline. 2 loops for shoulders. 1 for torso. A ring for the spine and a clamp for the helmet. He worked fast, thumbs on buckles, mind on angles. He cinched her tight against his pack. Her visor knocked his. Her breath fogged his side view. Name, he asked. She hesitated. Nira. Okay, Nira. I'm Rhett. Stay still. Breathe slow if you can. He pushed off, light and careful. The first twitch sent them into a yaw. He killed it with a short burst from his wrist jets. Another burst turned them through the doorway, past the tilted rack, past the skeletons of machines. The ping was behind them now. Ahead waited a tunnel of twisted gold and black. "Bren," he said, "I'm coming out heavy." "How heavy?" "2 lives," Rhett said. A sheet of hull, the size of a car door, drifted into their path, spinning like a coin. He counted the turns in his head. He fired his boot jets at the exact moment the flat side passed. They slid under it with inches to spare. Nira's gloves tightened on his shoulders. He felt the tremor through the suit. They reached the cut circle. Stars gleamed beyond like cold eyes. Rhett stopped, crouched, and kicked the rim with one heel to clear slag. The circle rocked and drifted away. He stepped to the edge and looked out at the shred. The void screamed its silent scream. "Bren," he said, voice low. "Open the door." A rectangle of warm light irised open on the belly of the Rook, their ugly little ship. It looked like a haven. It looked like a target. Between him and that door moved the worst kind of weather. Broken ships, broken moonstone, broken laws of motion. He checked his thrusters again. He checked the straps on Nira. "Hang on," he whispered. He jumped. The dark swallowed them whole. The moment Rhett pushed away from the shattered cruiser, silence returned. Not peace, but the kind of silence that screamed in his skull. The stars outside were still, cruel witnesses. Every second, his oxygen counter ticked down like a clock toward zero. Nira's body pressed against his back. She was light, too light. He could feel the faint rise and fall of her breathing through his suit. Her damaged leg dragged slightly, bumping against his side as he turned. The emergency lights on her suit flickered red like a dying heart. "Stay awake," Rhett said, voice low but firm. I am trying," she whispered. "Your species, you lift with such instability." He chuckled once. "You're welcome." They floated between fragments of ship corpses. A shattered satellite spun by, trailing frozen wires. The wreckage field was thick, like a maze built by death itself. Rhett guided them through with tiny bursts from his thrusters, each one measured and precise. Behind him, Nira's breathing grew rough. "Your systems are manual," she said. "You do not rely on neural guidance?" "Never trusted machines to think for me," Rhett replied. "They don't panic right, and panic saves lives." Something massive drifted past, an old battle engine, still glowing faintly from its core. The radiation meter on Rhett's visor blinked orange. "Lovely," he muttered, rotating just enough to keep them out of its wake. His pulse stayed steady. Years of scavenging had taught him the rhythm of chaos. You move, you pause, you breathe. The channel crackled. "Rhett, talk to me," Bren's voice broke through. "Got her," Rhett replied. "Alive, barely." "You insane piece of art," Bren rumbled. "You've got 6 seconds till the field rolls again. Then we'll dance." He triggered his wrist jets, pushing hard. The sudden thrust sent them spinning, stars turning like a carousel. He fought the spin, twisting his arms, balancing the added mass of the alien on his back. Nira groaned. Her suit sparked. A warning light flared on Rhett's HUD. Oxygen leak, minimal. He ignored it. The breach light from the Rook grew brighter ahead. Then, motion. A jagged panel of steel, big as a truck, came tumbling from above. Rhett's instincts took over. He fired a short blast downward and yanked his right arm to twist. The panel missed them by meters, scraping sparks off his boot. The impact wave rocked him sideways. For a heartbeat, they were tumbling uncontrolled, spinning, stars blurring. He gritted his teeth. Not today. He slammed both thruster controls forward, countering the spin with a burst that rattled his spine. The horizon righted. The Rook's airlock loomed close enough to see scorch marks on the hull. Bren's voice boomed. "Open." The airlock doors peeled apart. A soft blue glow flooded out, the kind of light only home gave. Rhett hit the hull feet first, the mag boots clanging loud. The recoil sent pain up his knees. He stumbled inside and slammed the control pad. The outer hatch sealed. Air hissed. Pressure climbed. When the inner door opened, the warmth hit him like a punch. Bren was waiting, massive, armored, a living wall. He grabbed Nira's limp form and helped ease her onto the floor. "What in all black suns did you bring us?" "Company," Rhett said, panting. "She's Vraxen. Research type. Crushed under wreckage." The ship's engineer, Jenna Pike, rushed in, her hair wild and eyes burning with caffeine and fear. "Oh, brilliant, an alien corpse. Did it come with a warranty?" "She's not dead," Rhett said. "Yet." Jenna rolled her eyes and slapped the scanner onto Nira's chest plate. The display flared green, then dipped to red. Her oxygen cells are toast. I can patch the suit, but we'll need to bypass her core relay manually. In English, Jenna, Bren grumbled. She's freezing alive, Jenna snapped. Now move that big metal head of yours and hand me the plasma rig. Rhett leaned against the bulkhead, heart finally slowing. His visor showed faint ice on his faceplate. He popped the seal and lifted it off. Air bit his skin, warm and recycled. He took one deep breath, the kind that reminded him he was human and still here. Behind him, Jenna worked fast, wires and sparks dancing around her gloves. Nira gasped as oxygen filled her suit again. Her visor cleared, revealing pale violet eyes full of confusion and fear. Rhett crouched down beside her. You're safe now, he said quietly. She looked at him for a long moment, her voice trembling. You carried me through open void. No drone, no neural anchor. That's how we do things, he said. But your species is fragile. Rhett gave a half smile. Guess you were misinformed. Bren snorted in the background. Tell that to my knees. The ship hummed, metal groaning under shifting pressure. Outside, the wreck field spun endlessly, a silent witness to what had just happened. A human dragging a dying alien out of hell, powered only by stubbornness and heart. Nira's suit flickered back to blue, faint but steady. She whispered, barely audible. You risked your life for me. What? Rhett looked at her, not the alien, but the person. Because someone has to remind the stars what we're made of. In that moment, the void outside seemed to quiet. The ghostly ship Rex turned slowly, and for once, the silence felt like respect. The Rook shuddered as its engines kicked in, thrumming like a tired heartbeat. The ship wasn't built for heroics. It was a scrap hauler with too many scars and too few prayers left. But tonight, it had done the impossible. Rhett sat in the pilot's chair, helmet off, sweat drying on his brow. His gloved hands rested on the controls, but his eyes kept drifting toward the medbay feed flickering on the console. Through the screen, he could see Nira lying on the narrow bed, her alien armor half peeled open, glowing cables and soft tissue blending in a way that made even Jenna uneasy. She's stable, Jenna muttered, tightening a clamp on one of the suit's fluid tubes. Barely. Her physiology's a nightmare, Rhett. You saved her, but I don't know if she'll thank you for it. Rhett's voice came through the intercom, calm but distant. Didn't do it for thanks. She's alive. That's enough. Bren leaned against the bulkhead near the medbay door, his arms folded like slabs of steel. You know the guild's gonna love this, he rumbled. Bringing an alien aboard without clearance? They'll have us listed as smugglers before sunrise. Let them, Rhett said. We've been called worse. Outside the ship's thick glass viewport, the shreds stretched endlessly, a twisted maze of broken hulls, torn satellites, and spinning ruins. The remains of the Vraxin fleet shimmered like ghosts under distant starlight. Every flicker of reflection could be a drifting mine or a dormant turret waiting to wake. Rhett's eyes never left the radar display. Movement, he said softly. Debris or trouble? Bren asked. Both, Rhett muttered. But debris doesn't change course. Jenna froze mid-motion. You mean someone's tracking us? Before Rhett could answer, the ship's proximity alarms began to scream. Red lights flooded the cockpit. We've got heat, he shouted. 2 signatures. Fast and closing. Bren was already moving, grabbing his weapon, a magnetic rivet launcher that had been modified enough times to count as a war crime. Pirates. Scav lords, Rhett said. Probably heard our signal flare when we fired the engines. Lovely, Jenna said, slamming a hand on the engineering console. Engines are still bleeding plasma. I can give you 30% thrust, but anything more and she'll blow. Rhett grinned without humor. 30's enough. He pushed the throttle, and the Rook roared to life. The ship surged forward, cutting through the debris field like a knife through broken glass. Behind them, 2 jagged silhouettes appeared, scavenger crafts welded together from old warships, spikes and salvage forming their ugly crowns. Their weapons flashed green, and beams of plasma carved through the void. The first shot clipped the Rook's wing. Metal screamed. Sparks burst across the cockpit. Rhett swore and twisted the ship hard left. Jenna, give me something. I'm giving you everything, she yelled, slamming a wrench into a control socket. Try not to die for at least 20 seconds. Bryn braced himself in the corridor, locking his mag boots to the floor. I'll handle anyone stupid enough to board. The Rook dived between two massive hull fragments, rolling through a canyon of wreckage. Plasma bolts followed, carving molten scars through dead ships. Rhett moved like a man born in gravity but trained in chaos. His hands steady, his jaw set. You fly like a madman. Nira's weak voice came through the comms from the medbay. Rhett smirked. Says the one who builds ships that crash. I do not crash, she muttered faintly, breath uneven. I calculate. Then start calculating a way out of this, Rhett said. For a moment, all that existed was motion, metal, light, and noise. Rhett's every turn felt like a coin flip between life and vapor. Then, suddenly, a shadow loomed ahead. A rotating hulk, bigger than the Rook, cracked open like an egg. Rhett saw it and smiled. That'll do. Rhett? No. Jenna barked through the intercom. That's a collapse carrier. The gravity field inside. Exactly, Rhett cut in. They'll never follow. He pulled the throttle again. The Rook dove straight into the broken carrier's carcass. The air crackled as residual energy clawed at the hull. The lights flickered out. Static filled the cabin. Behind them, one of the Skav's ships hesitated, then fired again, a wild shot that scraped the carrier's outer frame and blew half its own stabilizer apart. The second pirate followed recklessly, only to slam nose first into a spinning chunk of debris. The radar cleared. Silence returned, heavy, electric silence. Inside the ship, the only sound was the creak of cooling metal. Rhett exhaled slowly, every muscle trembling from adrenaline. They're gone. For now, Bryn said. But we're running on fumes. Jenna's voice came from below decks. We lost the starboard engine and half the NAV sensors. If we stop, we die. If we keep flying, we still might die, just slower. Rhett leaned back, staring at the flickering medbay feed again. Nira was watching him now, her eyes tired but focused. You risked your ship, she said softly. For me. Rhett's voice was steady, almost gentle. You're part of the story now. What story? She asked. The one where the fragile ones carry the universe on their backs, he said. She didn't reply, but something in her gaze changed. Respect, confusion, maybe both. Outside, the stars shimmered through the cracked hull of the carrier like lanterns on black water. The Rook drifted deeper into the wreck's shadow, its engines a dying heartbeat. Rhett reached over, powered down the alarms, and whispered into the quiet. Let's see if we can make the impossible work again. And somewhere deep within the broken giant around them, a faint echo answered. A pulse, rhythmic and alive, waiting to be found. The Rook floated in darkness like a wounded animal hiding in its den. Its engines were silent now, faint trails of coolant steam whispering into the void. Every light inside the ship was dimmed, leaving the corridors soaked in a soft red glow. The crew had gone quiet, the kind of quiet that came when everyone knew danger still lurked outside. Rhett stood in the cockpit, hands braced against the console. Through the cracked window, the wreck field looked like a frozen storm. Thousands of dead ships tangled together, slowly orbiting a broken moon. Somewhere out there, the Skav lords would be searching. He knew they'd be back. Behind him, Bryn's footsteps rumbled through the deck. Hull integrity's holding, he said, voice like gravel being ground between gears. But we can't take another hit. We're bleeding air through 6 seams. Patch what you can, Rhett said. His eyes stayed on the dark horizon. We need to stay hidden till the drive cools. Bryn hesitated. You're thinking, Captain. I don't like when you think. Rhett gave a small grin that didn't reach his eyes. Thinking's cheaper than dying. Down in the medbay, Nira stirred on the cot. Her suit was half open, her pale skin luminous in the flickering light. The cables Jenna had grafted to her chest pulsed faintly, each beat syncing with her slow breath. When Rhett stepped inside, Jenna was crouched beside the bed, her hands stained with oil and something that might have been alien coolant. She'll live, Jenna said softly. But her neural link is fried. She's seeing things that aren't there. Like what? Rhett asked. Nira's voice came before Jenna could answer. The voices. They call you voidwalkers. Rhett blinked. What did you just say? She turned her head toward him. Her eyes, bright violet now, were sharper than before. In my people's channels, they whisper of humans. Fragile ones who move among wrecks and bring the dead home. They say you walk through silence and carry the fallen. Bryn snorted from the doorway. Sounds like superstition. Maybe, Nero whispered. But to the Skav tribes, to the stranded soldiers, you're myths. Rhett crossed his arms. We're not myths. We just don't like leaving people behind. Nira studied him for a long moment, her voice small but steady. No one else does that. The Vraxen leave the weak. The Valkor purify them. But humans, she paused, searching for the word. You defy the logic of survival. Logic never built a home, Jenna muttered, tightening a wire on Nira's suit. Compassion did. The ship gave a low groan as if agreeing. Rhett looked around the cramped med bay, mismatched panels, humming pipes, everything bolted and welded together by stubborn hands. The Rook wasn't beautiful, but it was alive in a way no perfect machine could be. A sudden clatter of metal echoed from above. Bryn stiffened. That wasn't the hull settling. Rhett was already reaching for his helmet. We've got company. Jenna glanced at the radar. No ships nearby. Maybe debris. The sound came again, closer, heavier. Then a voice, low and resonant, boomed through the corridor. Humans. So it is true. The crew froze. The figure that stepped through the doorway was enormous, nearly scraping the ceiling. Its armor was dented and scorched, bearing the symbol of a fallen empire. A Valkor warrior, dark-skinned, eyes glowing faintly beneath a cracked visor. He carried his helmet in one hand, his other arm bound in a makeshift sling. Bryn reached for his weapon, but Rhett held up a hand. Easy. The alien stared at them all in silence for a few heartbeats, then spoke. I owe you my life. Your ship pulled me from the wreckage 2 cycles ago. I had not the strength to speak then. My name is Vale. Rhett nodded slowly. Rhett Varen, captain of this flying disaster. Vale looked around the small room, his gaze landing on Nira. Vraxen, he said, voice heavy with disdain. Our empires were enemies. And now you're both survivors, Rhett said. So play nice. Nira shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. The faint hum of the ship's core filled the silence between them. After a long pause, Vale spoke again. You have no army, no empire, no god. Yet you move through the ruins and save others. The Skav gangs speak of you as ghosts. Void walkers, they call you. Beings who steal souls from the jaws of nothing. Rhett chuckled under his breath. Ghosts, huh? We just don't know when to quit. Vale's expression didn't change, but his tone softened. That is what terrifies them. Before Rhett could reply, Jenna's console beeped. Captain, you'll want to see this. They gathered in the cockpit. On the main screen, static danced across a weak transmission signal. Nira leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. That's a distress beacon, she said. Vraxen frequency. Very old, but still active. Distance? Rhett asked. Half a sector. Deep inside the shred, Jenna replied. That's pirate territory. Vale's jaw tightened. The Skav Lord Vorik commands that zone. He despises weakness. He hunts those who help others. Then he'll come for us, Bryn said. Let him, Rhett replied, his voice steady. We'll answer his hunt with one of our own. Nira looked at him with quiet wonder. You would go deeper? For strangers? Rhett's grin was small but fierce. We don't leave echoes unanswered. For the first time, Vale smiled. Not out of joy, but respect. Then perhaps your legend is deserved, Voidwalker. Outside, the stars began to move again, or maybe it only looked that way. The Rook's engines whispered back to life, and the ship drifted out of hiding, its lights dim but burning. The Void didn't speak, but if it did, it might have said, they're coming. The Rook crept through the shred like a thief sneaking past sleeping gods. All around them, colossal wrecks floated in silence. Dreadnoughts split in half, cruisers pierced through with asteroid shards, whole fleets turned into tombs. The darkness was thick here, lit only by the dying glow of forgotten battles. Rhett sat in the pilot's chair, every sense wired tight. The radar was a blur of ghost signals, false echoes bouncing off fractured hulls. One wrong move, and the ship could tear itself apart on hidden debris. Talk to me, Jenna, he said, eyes flicking over the dim screens. The engineer's voice came from below deck, crackling through static. Engines running on patchwork prayers, Cap. I've rerouted power from the port thrusters, but if you ask for a sharp turn, the whole tail might fall off. Good, Rhett muttered. We'll save time on repairs. Bryn leaned over his shoulder, his huge arms folded across his chest. You're heading straight for the coordinates she gave us, aren't you? Nira's pale form sat in the co-pilot's seat beside Rhett. Her voice was faint but steady. The distress call matches an old Vraxan research cruiser, designation Solstice Dawn. It was carrying a Singularity Core prototype before it vanished. Bryn grunted. You're saying there's a black hole in a bottle floating out there? Contained energy, not actual gravity, Nira explained. But yes, if it's intact, it could power this ship for a lifetime. Rhett's lips twitched into a smirk. So a treasure chest in the middle of hell. Sounds about right. Vale stood behind them, his massive frame almost blending with the shadows. If this core exists, Vorik will know. He feeds on power and fear alike. He will not let us take it. Then we'll just have to be faster, Rhett said. The Rook slipped deeper into the graveyard. The temperature sensors began to flicker. Outside, chunks of debris glided past like silent leviathans. Then, between two jagged hulls, they saw it. A massive ship half buried in asteroid dust. The Solstice Dawn. Its frame still shimmered faintly blue from residual energy. There she is, Rhett said, leaning forward. Looks dead. Jenna's voice cut in. Cap, I'm reading faint power signatures. Not much, but enough to make my hair stand up. Rhett's instincts prickled. Could be automated defenses. Vale's tone was flat. Or a trap. Rhett smiled thinly. Then let's see who bites first. He steered the Rook closer, thrusters whispering as they glided toward the alien behemoth. The cruiser's hull loomed large, hundreds of meters of twisted alloy and shattered panels. Faded markings still ran along its side, symbols that looked like the language of stars. Opening scanner sweep, Nira said, tapping her console. Radiation minimal. No active drives. Power grid wait. The console blinked red. Alarms flared. Multiple signatures decloaking, she shouted. Outside, 3 scavenger ships shimmered into view, surrounding them like sharks scenting blood. Their hulls were crude and jagged, bolted together from salvage and stolen armor. Vorik's hounds, Vale growled. He anticipated this. The first plasma bolt hit before Rhett could respond. The Rook lurched violently, sparks bursting from the ceiling. Shields at 30%. Jenna yelled from below. Starboard plating is melting. Rhett gritted his teeth. Hold on. He threw the ship into a hard roll, skimming along the Solstice Dawn's side. Debris scraped against the hull with a sound like claws on bone. Bryn fired the belly-mounted cannon, sending a line of molten slugs into one of the Scoff's ships. The shot ripped through its midsection, sending it spinning into the dark. But the other 2 pressed closer, firing plasma bursts that carved glowing scars across the Rook's flank. Cap, they're trying to disable us. Jenna shouted. If they hit the reactor, we're dust. Then they'll have to catch us first. Rhett dove the ship downward, into the shadow of the Solstice Dawn. He skimmed beneath its colossal hull, using the debris field as cover. Every twist and turn brought them inches from death. Nira clung to her seat, eyes darting over the readouts. We can't outrun them. The drives won't last. Rhett's mind raced. He spotted a crater-like cavity near the cruiser's belly, a collapsed hangar bay, open to the void. Perfect. Jenna, I need all remaining thrust forward, he ordered. Dump power from life support if you have to. You're out of your mind. Always have been, Rhett said. Now do it. The engine screamed. The Rook shot toward the hangar mouth. A blast from behind rocked the ship, tearing off one of the sensor arrays. Fire licked along the ceiling, instantly sucked out by decompression. Almost there. Nira cried. The Rook plunged into the hangar, scraping its hull, but making it through. The walls closed around them, black and cold. The Scav ships fired after them, but their bolts struck the cruiser's hull instead, detonating harmlessly outside. Inside, silence fell again, thick and suffocating. The only sound was the faint hum of cooling metal. Rhett exhaled slowly, his hands trembling on the controls. Status. Barely alive, Jenna muttered. We've lost a thruster and most of the shield grid. If we fly again, it'll be with prayers and tape. Then we'll stay hidden, Rhett said. Vale looked out the viewport. You realize where we are, human. Inside the corpse of a god machine. If Vorik follows, this place becomes our tomb. Maybe, Rhett said, unbuckling his harness. Or maybe it becomes his. He stood, the flickering light catching the steel in his eyes. He wanted to bait us here. Good. Let's make sure he regrets it. Nira stared at him, caught between fear and fascination. You don't run from traps, do you? Rhett smirked. Running's for people who expect to lose. Outside the cracked hull, deep in the wreck's shadow, a low vibration began to stir, the faint tremor of engines far away. Vorik was coming. Rhett looked toward the darkness and whispered, "Let's see how the hunters like being hunted." The Rook lay in silence, anchored inside the torn belly of the Solstice Dawn. The ship's hull groaned now and then, like the ghost of a dying beast remembering pain. Every sound echoed too loud in the still air. Every breath felt borrowed. Rhett moved through the corridor with his helmet lamp slicing through darkness. The walls were covered in frost, thin as paper and glittering like crystal dust. His footsteps were soft, magnetic boots whispering over steel. Bryn followed behind him, his broad shadow filling the space. "Feels wrong in here," Bryn muttered. "Too quiet. Like the place knows we shouldn't be walking inside it." "Then walk softer," Rhett replied. "No sense waking gods." Behind them, Nira floated carefully, her repaired suit glowing faint blue. The faint hum from her chest module echoed faintly, steady but weak. "This ship's energy readings are inconsistent," she said, scanning the wall with her wrist display. "Something deep inside is still alive." Rhett stopped. "Alive? Not biological," Nira corrected quickly. "Power signature. Something in the core still functions, pulsing at an exact rhythm every 80 seconds. That's impossible." "Impossible's our favorite kind of job," Rhett said, grinning faintly. "Can you trace it?" "Yes," she said, already moving toward a narrow shaft that led deeper into the ship's underbelly. Vale joined them at the next junction, his towering form barely fitting in the corridor. He carried a weapon that looked like half a cannon and half a relic. "The air here stinks of radiation," he warned. "Whatever heart beats in this corpse, it will not welcome us kindly." Rhett nodded once. "Then we'll knock." They reached a chamber large enough to hold a city block. The floor was cracked open, cables spilling out like veins. A faint golden light pulsed in the distance, steady, slow, alive. Nira moved forward, her eyes wide. "That's the containment matrix. The singularity core must still be inside, but it's unstable." Jenna's voice crackled through the comms from the Rook. "Cap, my scanners are going insane. The energy readings down there could power a fleet or blow one apart. Don't touch anything shiny." Rhett smiled. "You know me, Jay? That's what worries me," she muttered. As they approached the central dais, the golden glow grew brighter. It wasn't just light, it was movement. The energy swirled inside a spherical chamber, like liquid sunlight trapped in glass. Strange geometric runes flickered along the surface, shifting every few seconds. Vale stopped a few meters away. "Your kind built weapons from this." Nira shook her head. "No, this was never meant for destruction. It's pure energy, designed to restore dying worlds." But something corrupted it. Rhett crouched beside a control console half buried in rubble. He brushed the dust away and squinted at the symbols. "Can you read it?" "Partially," Nira said, joining him. "It's a fail-safe sequence, but it's locked behind a Vraxan command code." Rhett looked at her. "And you're the only one here who can open it." She hesitated. "If I try, and it fails, the containment could collapse. This entire ship might turn into a miniature sun." Bryn grunted. "Then we go out bright." Rhett smiled. "Let's not test that theory." Before Nira could respond, the comms crackled again, but this time it wasn't Jenna's voice. It was harsh, mocking, and filled with static. Well, the voice drawled. The Voidwalkers found themselves a playground. Vale's eyes darkened. "Vorik," the warlord's laughter filled the channel. "You've done my work for me, little humans. I should thank you. That core belongs to me now." "Sorry," Rhett replied. "Finders keepers." "I'll take it off your corpse," Vorik growled. "Fire when ready." The sound of distant explosions rolled through the metal around them. The Solstice Dawn trembled. Nira's eyes went wide. "He's firing into the wreck. If the core destabilizes." Rhett didn't let her finish. "We move now?" "Jenna, prep the Rook." "Already spinning up engines," she replied. "But you better hurry. The hull's coming apart." The crew ran. The corridor ahead split open as debris rained down. Fire bloomed in zero gravity, little suns flickering between steel shards. Rhett grabbed Nira's arm and pulled her forward. "Shortcut's gone, other route." They ducked through a maintenance shaft, sliding through weightless dust. The metal groaned under pressure. Bren climbed behind them, shoving a collapsed beam aside with a roar. Go, he bellowed. When they burst back into the hangar, the view beyond the shattered hull was chaos. Vorik's fleet had arrived, black ships with blood-red lights, circling like vultures. Cap, Jenna shouted through the radio. They've got us pinned. Rhett's eyes darted to the dying Rook resting nearby. Smoke drifted from her thrusters, one engine missing half its shell. She'll fly, he muttered. She'll fall, Jenna argued. Then we'll fall forward. They sprinted toward the ship as enemy fire ripped through the wreck's outer hull. Vale turned and fired his cannon, the recoil shaking the deck. A scavenger pod exploded in a burst of molten slag. Rhett jumped through the airlock first, yanking Nira inside after him. Bren followed, dragging Vale by his armor. The inner door sealed just as a blast tore through the outer wall. Engines now, Rhett shouted. I told you they're unstable. Jenna snapped, her hands flying across the controls. If I push them. The Rook screamed like a living thing as the engines roared to life. The ship lurched, scraping the hangar floor, then shot forward, straight through the collapsing hull. Behind them, the solstice dawn began to glow. Nira's voice trembled. The core's collapsing. The light from the wreck grew blinding. Rhett didn't look back. Hold together, girl, he yelled, gripping the controls. The Rook punched through the debris field just as the explosion went off. A wave of golden fire erupted behind them, swallowing Vorik's fleet in light. The blast hurled the Rook forward like a leaf in a hurricane. The shields flared and died. When the light faded, the void returned, quiet again, as if nothing had happened. Rhett's knuckles were white on the controls. His breath came slow and ragged. Everyone alive? Barely, Bren groaned. Ship. Jenna's voice was a whisper. If I hit her any harder, she'll turn into art. Vale looked out the viewport at the drifting remains of Vorik's armada. You destroyed his fleet, he said softly. No, Rhett corrected, glancing at Nira. She did. Nira's face was pale, her eyes glowing faintly. I rerouted the failsafe. It wasn't meant to kill, but to cleanse. Rhett gave a tired smile. Remind me not to make you angry. The Rook floated onward, its hull cracked and glowing, its crew alive but changed. Somewhere behind them, the dead god's heart finally stopped beating, and with it, the legends of the Voidwalkers grew a little louder. The Rook drifted through silence, glowing faintly against the endless dark. Every inch of her hull was scorched, every bolt trembling from the strain. Inside, the air tasted of burnt metal and victory that hadn't yet realized it was survival. Rhett sat slumped in the pilot's chair, his hands still gripping the controls though the engines had long since gone cold. A slow smile tugged at his mouth, half relief, half disbelief. Behind him, the others moved quietly, each breath heavy, each movement carrying the weight of everything they'd just lived through. Bren stood by the viewport, arms crossed, his voice rough as gravel. You ever think we'd see daylight again, Cap? Rhett's eyes stayed on the starfield. Didn't expect daylight. Just didn't plan on dying in the dark. In the med bay, Nira lay strapped to a cot. Her skin glowed faintly under the soft lights, veins pulsing with residual energy from the Singularity core. Jenna hovered over her, running scans with trembling hands. Her system's stabilizing, she muttered. But whatever she did down there, it changed her. There's Vraxen tech fused to her nervous system. She's part of the core now. Nira stirred, opening her eyes. Still alive? Rhett appeared in the doorway, helmet tucked under one arm. Alive and irritatingly stubborn. So, yeah, that means human company suits you fine. Her lips curved faintly. You mock even after surviving a star. It's called optimism, Rhett said. Keeps the blood moving. Hours passed. Outside, the void had gone still again. No more wreckage, no scavenger signatures, no Vorik fleet. Only the wreck of the solstice dawn remained behind, a distant golden wound in the stars. Vale stood near the airlock, staring at it through the glass. He is dead, he said quietly. Vorik's pride became his funeral pyre. Good riddance, Bren muttered. Man talked too much. Jenna climbed out from under a console, face smudged with oil and exhaustion. Engines are fried, reactors half dead, but we've got backup thrust for short burns. We'll drift till someone picks up the emergency beacon. Might take days. Rhett nodded slowly. We can live with that. He looked at the crew, mismatched, battered, breathing. We've done worse on less. The comms crackled suddenly. A faint, broken voice whispered through static. Signal received. Concordat patrol inbound. Hold position. Jenna's eyes went wide. They heard us. Rhett exhaled deeply, almost smiling. Guess the universe decided we're not done yet. Later, as the Rook coasted on minimal power, Rhett wandered into the storage bay. The walls were scorched and patched, but in one corner hung a tattered scrap of fabric, an old mission flag from a forgotten colony. He touched it gently. Behind him, Nira's voice came soft. You could have left me, Rhett. You had no reason to risk everything. He turned to face her. She was standing now, weak but steady, her glowing veins dimmer than before. I didn't need a reason, he said. That's what we do. We carry the ones who can't walk. That's what makes us human. Nira looked down, her expression unreadable. You're kind. You don't see fragility as weakness. Fragility's what makes us dangerous, Rhett said. We break, we bleed, but we get back up. The galaxy doesn't know what to do with that. She stepped closer, studying him like one might study a new species. You think your people can change the stars? He smiled faintly. One broken ship at a time. When the Concordat rescue fleet arrived, they found the Rook drifting amidst the wreckage, her hull cracked and scarred, but her beacon burning bright. Rhett and his crew stood on the airlock platform, watching the rescue lights approach like dawn after a long night. Vale adjusted his armor, what little of it remained. They will call you heroes, Voidwalker. Let them, Rhett said. Just spell the name right. Bryn chuckled. And what about the ship? She's earned her place in the stories too. Rhett looked at the Rook, her panels patched, her frame groaning but alive. She's not the Rook anymore, he said softly. She carried us through death itself. She deserves better. Jenna tilted her head. Got a name in mind? Rhett smiled. The Unbroken Cause. The crew stood in silence for a moment, the name settling like a heartbeat. Outside, the first rays from a nearby star touched the ship's hull, painting it gold. Unbroken, Vale repeated quietly. I like it. Nero watched the light with quiet wonder. Your people, you never stop, do you? Stopping's not in the job description, Rhett said. We just keep carrying. As the rescue fleet escorted them out of the shred, the Unbroken Cause glided through the wrecked horizon, leaving the haunted graveyard behind. The story of the Voidwalkers spread in whispers, of the humans who entered death's mouth and came back carrying life. In the dark between stars, legends were born not from strength, but from the fragile hearts that refused to shatter. And somewhere in that endless silence, Rhett Varen's voice echoed over the comms, calm, tired, and utterly human. Tell them we're not fragile. Tell them we carry the galaxy. The stars blinked, and the void listened.